So welcome to the latest episode of Gallifrey Pirate Radio. We're actually coming from you, from just us and not actually at a convention or anything, where we're doing actually something sort of special. Originally we were planning on doing some reviews of 10th Planet and Moonbase, but we just realized what today was.
Today is March the 26th, which means that it is the 9th anniversary of the release of Doctor Who in 2005. So March 26, 2005, we got the premiere of Rose, which means that now Doctor Who, New Who, has been on the air for 9 years.
Yeah, next year 10.
Yes. And then following that, 11.
Yeah.
I know.
But no, I mean, we've had it a decade now. I mean, who would have thought? I mean, we had lost Doctor Who.
Mm-hmm.
We got it back with Rose and Eccleston, and it's still going strong. I mean, we just hit the 50th anniversary of Who in general, and now we're at sort of
9 years.
9 years. Wow,
Yeah.
9 years.
If you think about the number of television shows that are on the air currently that have gone 9 or more years, there's not that many of them.
No, How I Met Your Mother, which ends this season.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, it has its own spin-off, How I Met Your Father, but it doesn't really connect any other way. We have Power Rangers, because they just celebrated their 15th anniversary the same year Doctor Who celebrated its 50th. But that's about all I could think of.
The Simpsons is, of course, celebrating year 26, which is
wow,
the same number of years that Doctor... Yeah, so for those of you who are watching it, if The Simpsons have been on your entire life, keep in mind that Doctor Who was on for 26 years, from 63 to 89, before they finally canceled. They canceled it the first time. Technically it wasn't on that long because there's that gap with Colin Baker, but close enough. So The Simpsons has been on as long as Classic Who, so all it has to do is go on another 9 years, and it will have been on as long as Doctor Who has.
Wow.
Yeah.
And that would be consecutively and not with a break.
Yeah. I don't think there's any... I think it's definitely the longest running sitcom. It's the longest running animated show year-wise. I don't know if it's episode-wise. I know Dragon Ball Z's got some kind of weird numbering system, but that's neither here nor there. Plus, this is a Doctor Who show.
Yes. So, wow. 9 years.
Yeah.
Just think next year we'll be talking about the 10th anniversary, and who knows if they're going to have anything special going on, which I hope they do.
Sure.
Celebrating Classic Who, because I think a decade is something pretty substantial, especially for a sci-fi show that lasts that long.
For a sci-fi show, even currently in this kind of area of epic event television, shows usually don't run this long, so that's still really impressive. Of course, our friends over at Doctor Who Legacy, the app, are celebrating today with the release of the Christopher Eccleston 9th Doctor, ability to recruit him for that.
Yes.
Really cool.
Interesting character. He's black but has healing, which is kind of nice and interesting. I think he's the first black character with healing.
Yes. And for those who have not played it, we're not saying that Christopher Eccleston is in fact a black doctor.
Yeah, I was just thinking the same thing.
If you haven't played the game, you really should. If you like Candy Crush role-playing games with Doctor Who, this is the one for you.
So where were you 9 years ago when Rose came out? Because I know you didn't see Rose until much later.
2005, I was living in Winston-Salem, North Carolina. I knew that Doctor Who was on. I had very, very, very limited internet access at that point in time. We had the internet at the home, but that was when we had dial-up, no cell phones, LAN modems only, and I wasn't part of fandom at that point in time. Oof, this is scary. 2005, I was just rediscovering Firefly, the TV show.
Wow.
That was kind of getting back into that and rewatching all of Buffy. So that's what I was doing for 2005.
Well, if you think about it, I don't think Who had the fandom yet. It had the classic fandom.
Well, classic fandom,
but
sure.
It didn't have the monstrosity, and I don't use monstrosity as in a negative term, but this is massive following, worldwide following that it has now.
Well, of course. I mean, keep in mind, even when it did show up, American audiences didn't see it unless they watched it a year and a half later on the Sci-Fi Channel, or got the DVDs. I was lucky when I moved to Asheville. I had a video store, DVD store at that point in time, that had access to a lot of cult shows. So they had Classic Who and New Who. So I devoured season 1 and season 2 at the same time. So I really didn't get into Doctor Who as a ongoing event until the 3rd season.
Yeah. No, I actually was able to see it shortly after it aired, and I kept watching from there on out. And of course, I was enjoying it. I was glad we had it back, because I've always said that we got lucky. We got Doctor Who back, but not only did we get it back, we got it back amazingly well. And I've said that a number of times on the show. But I mean, if you look at the number of comebacks that have been tried, that have been pop culture based. I mean, if you look at the New Adventures of He-Man, Thundercats, G.I. Joe, Transformers has actually been sort of successful with that. But I mean, look at all, and I mean, or
all of
Star
those
Trek
are
stuff.
Yeah, I was going to say Star Trek, at least, because Star Trek is something we can actually compare it to, because the other ones are animated, and of course you could relaunch. You could do just about anything you want.
Yeah, but they all failed.
They all failed.
Yeah.
Star Trek hasn't failed, though. I'd be very curious to see what the next Star Trek is going to be like.
Well, I can't say it succeeded yet either, because it has not made the jump back to television.
That's what I was saying. Star Trek has television.
Because after rewatching some of those shows, I'm like, I would like to see Star Trek back on TV again in some form or fashion. But yeah, no, I got jumped back. I mean, I was back into it in the thick of things as it was airing originally, because I was lucky enough to have people. I'm not going to lie, that were bootlegging it, but. And I was able to get copies. But don't worry, BBC, I have bought every season so far. Drew can attest to that. But I mean, honestly, starting with Rose, could you have ever imagined Doctor Who becoming the phenomenon it is now?
Well, part of me as the fan wants to say yes, because it's such a great show, but if you kind of take it out of context, it's kind of hard to look back and think of those episodes. The first episode, Rose, it's okay.
Yeah.
End of the World is brilliant. The Unquiet Dead is brilliant. Okay, then we have World War III and the Farting Aliens and the Celine, and that's still better than a lot of stuff that was on TV.
Yeah.
No, I don't. I have to be honest. After the first season, as good as it is, I can't imagine. It's kind of hard to have thought at that time, had it not already been into basically a 3rd season by the time I was watching it. But a lot of shows make it to 3 and then are gone.
Yeah.
And it very easily could. And it felt like it. I loved watching season 3 intermittently with friends letting me come over and watch it. Season 4 got into a little bit more regular groove. And then the special, the gap year special, that was a little disturbing because I didn't have internet access, so I didn't realize that they were originally planning. I just thought, wow, they're only making 5 episodes for an entire year, or really 3 if you think about it, because a Christmas episode and then a New Year's episode, so there's really only about 3 in a year.
Yeah.
That was unfortunate. I thought that maybe Doctor Who was on its way out.
Yeah, no, actually, I'll admit, I never thought where it started is where we would end up, 9 years later. I mean, 8 years later, 7 years later. I mean, it actually not even that long. But yeah, no, actually, there was rumblings that with Tennant wanting to leave, that could be the end of Doctor Who at the time.
Sure.
But, Moffat and Smith, I'm going to say this, went balls to the walls, and that's Series 5. And did something magical. I don't think they've ever captured that magic that's season 5 was since, because that was just such an incredible season. I'm really hoping we're gonna have that magic again with this first season of Capaldi. But yeah, no, I never would have imagined. But honestly, I'm glad Eccleston left when he did, because we got Tennant. Because I think you needed Eccleston to relaunch it. I think you need somebody like Tennant, to really draw in the fans, and then it was anybody's game thereafter.
It's just impressive to think that it's been going pretty strong for 9 years.
Yeah.
I mean, it's an accomplishment, but I'm not sure this is a show that would have that kind of those legs had Classic Who not run for 26 years. I mean, it's one of those things where it's happened before, it can happen again.
Yeah.
Maybe we'll get another, 15, 16 seasons out of it, and then it'll get canceled again. Actually, I'm sure it'll get canceled before 15 seasons is up. I mean, it's going to have to. Doctor Who's always going to be in the zeitgeist and kind of in that moment, but it might not always be on the air. We'll get another iterations of it they'll reboot it. It's going to happen.
Well, so
I think it's too good of a show and too flexible a genre.
I don't think reboot's the right word. I think relaunch.
Relaunch, yes, you're right.
And honestly, I don't know when we're going to lose it. I hope we don't lose it anytime soon. But I think the thing that goes in its favor, the same thing that long-running soap operas have, is it's all about change. Like in soap operas, people are used to them, switching out one actor for another for the same character. And that's what you basically have here. But the great thing is when you switch out an actor, the lead actor, that new actor or the new doctor has a new personality. He's not confined to a strict, this is what the Doctor is through all of his incarnations, past, him being a Time Lord and stuff like that. I mean, they're allowed to explore the character themselves. They don't have to be exactly what the last guy was. And I think that helps the show. I think because the show has that continual change to it, that is what gives it its longevity, as long as the fans are there.
Well, I think also, and along that same point, in a show like a soap opera, you know that better than I would, if you switch out the main actor, that's usually a bad sign, I mean, I'm trying to think of shows that have continued after a main actor's been switched. All I can think of is Bewitched right now.
Valerie's Family. It was Valerie, and then she wanted more money. They killed her in a car accident, and then...
Are you talking about a soap opera?
No, this is mainstream TV.
Oh, wow.
And then they brought Sandy Duncan in to play the guy, the husband's sister or sister-in-law or something like that, and then became the Duncans.
Cool.
And that was one of the few examples where a show survived the loss.
The interesting thing about Doctor Who is instead of the show going downhill when you switch, it actually energizes it because we make it such a big cultural event. It's almost like a relaunch every single time. I mean, it's almost like every 3 years we get a new show, and it gives it kind of a boost, a shot in the arm.
Yeah.
So there's a lot going on. It's a lot has happened in 9 years. I think we could probably look forward to safely another 5 years on this run.
Oh, easy.
Maybe even another 9, depending on how it goes.
Yeah. So I mean, because we're just throwing some quick stuff out there. How long do you think Capaldi's going to make it?
I don't know. It's one of those things where I would want to see Capaldi for a full year before I could give you kind of that judgment, because that's everyone has rumor mills. I'm excited to see him come into the role. Of course I am. And was excited to see Smith leave. Yeah, actually. So I would be fine if every actor that came into Doctor Who ran for 3 seasons, three-ish seasons, and then switched. If that became the norm, I wouldn't have any problem with that.
Well, I mean, the thing with the Capaldi is, and this is not a rumor. We know this is fact. He's signed for one season, however you want to say it, and with the option to continue. Because depending on, I think 3 factors: the story Moffat wants to tell, if he's liked by the fans, and what Capaldi's schedule's like. Because I think next to Eccleston, he's the most famous person right now to have taken the role over in New Who. It's a good point, man. It's so tricky because we're Americans. Yeah.
And so, Capaldi's been on the edges of kind of Eccleston. I saw more of Eccleston than almost anybody else going into the role, at least of the new actors. But Capaldi's has really been kind of there in the public eye in the UK. So I would almost argue that he's almost more mainstream. But the other thing is this: we don't know what else Capaldi wants to do, but we do know that he's probably always wanted to be the Doctor. So I'm thinking, and this is just me, if I were Capaldi and I were in that situation, you're probably thinking, I want to wow him that first year. I want them to offer me the part for a longer contract. My hope is we'll see him for at least 3.
Well, I'm hoping. Because I have high hopes. I like what I'm hearing, rumor mill wise, with the tone and the theme. And I'll tell you, Gatiss is really being outspoken. He's really coming out and talking things up, which is, I've never seen Gatiss do that before. I'm excited. I'm waiting to find out if we get seen in June, if we get seen in September. But, I'm excited. I can't wait. So, over the course of the 9 years, highlights for you. What do you mean? Your top 3 favorite moments of New Who?
Well, let's see. The anticipation in Series 5 for the return of River Song and the Weeping Angels. I'm not saying the actual culmination of that, but the anticipation was pretty amazing. Going to the theater and seeing the 50th anniversary with everybody, or
Yeah.
just the whole 50th
Yeah.
anniversary as a celebration. And then cosplaying for the first time at conventions and kind of getting into that world.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
That's
I
awesome.
think those were three definite highlights for me. And yourself?
Just the fact that we got NuWHO, that we got Who back. The fact that we finally did get an acknowledgement that this was a continuation and not just a reboot, which was a big thing. And then, I would say the 50th. I mean,
And of course, we're including Magan in the 50th. So
yes.
I know that anyone who's watched the show understands that that should go without saying.
Yeah, I mean, everything with the 50th. I think they handled it extremely well. Everything from what Big Finish did to the re-release of books to some of the products. I'm going to be a lie. Here in America, we don't get a lot of products over here, so anything we get, and the 50th really brought Who merchandise to us, and actually a little bit more affordable than what had been before. But yeah, no, I think it's amazing.
I think one of the nice things the 50th anniversary did was those of us who were not diehard old school fans, classic Who fans, people who are just discovering Who, even if Matt Smith's with their first Doctor, the 50th made us feel included.
Yes.
Like it didn't matter how long we've been watching it. There was something for everybody. And I think that Doctor Who in general does that. Maybe not the fans don't do that for other fans, but the show itself makes us feel like, you don't have to watch the entire history to enjoy it and love it. So.
Exactly. So anything else you want to say about our 9 years? Because trust us, come next year, I know we're going to be doing something
big for, absolutely.
So any last thoughts about the 9 years?
A little embarrassed that I forgot that it was the anniversary until someone mentioned it online. So that's it as far as me. Happy 9th birthday, NuWHO.
Yeah.
Technically, happy 50th anniversary.
I just have to say thank you to everybody that's been involved with NuWHO. Every from Davies to Moffat to Gatiss to everybody that has been a part of the rebirth of something I love from my childhood. Thank you for not just making it suck like so many things here in America do when they try to relaunch something. Thank you for doing it extremely well, amazingly well, and just keep on doing it. I love you guys. Thanks. So I guess this is us signing off on our just really quick nod to 9 years of Doctor Who as of today.
Join us next time for the actual reviews of the 10th Planet and the Moon Base.
Yes. Peace.